two-dimensional arrays are exactly what they say. They're 2 dimensions. They have 2 dimension to them. In geometry, 2-dimensional, you can think of it as a rectangle. It has a length and a width. Okay, so it can be thought of as a table. A 2-dimensional array is going to be a table. Right? It's going to be a chart. It has rows and columns to it. Okay, so the way I declare it and initialize it is going to be very similar to the 1-dimensional array that we've already talked about in this class. But instead of using 1 set of brackets, I'm going to use 2. That basically just says I have 2 dimensions. Okay, I have row and column. It's very important that you remember that. I have 3 rows and I have 4 columns. That's exactly what this says right here. I have 3 rows and 4 columns in this array. It's 2 dimensions. Right? It will still start with the index 0. So in my chart, the upper left corner is going to be index 0, 0. You have to understand that this right here, when this says 3, 4, it says there are going to be 3 rows and 4 columns. So it's going to build me a table in memory that's going to look like this, just like this right here. I have 3 rows, 1, 2, 3. And I have 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4. Keeping in mind that this first row is actually called row 0. It's index 0, so you have to be very careful. The first row is index 0. And this is where people make mistakes all the time with arrays, is they forget that the first row is actually refers to 0, right? And so I've built this 3-row, 4-column table. It's a 2-dimensional array. So in my next slide here, there's another example, but this time, I'll go back 1 second. Remember, in this one, I created memory for a 3x4 array, but I have not put anything into it. So since they're all integers, right now my table would be filled with zeros. My entire table would be zeros. So if I tried to access some number in this table, it would tell me 0. That's what it would tell me. But if when I build a 2-dimensional array, if I actually want to fill it with numbers quickly, just like this is how I would do it. You don't have to type these things on separate lines, okay? The way I typed it right now is simply for reading's sake, so you can read it better. But when you're actually doing it in Java, okay, you may actually, I'll just do it real quick here in Java and show you. You actually could I'll come down here and create my 2-dimensional array. Let me paste this in here. Now my formatting's off just because I pasted from something strange, but I wouldn't have to do it this way if I don't want to. This is this would be all legal. Doesn't like something I'm doing here. But what I want is I could actually take, and first of all, I don't have to have any of these spaces. I'm not going to take time to get rid of all of them. But what I could do is I could bring these up onto the same line, which is actually what people are probably going to do to make this faster. And I have like so many spaces built in here. So really what you could do is this. Now readability isn't as easy, but line spacing sure does conserve some line spacing for you. This is perfectly legal. Okay, I have built 3 rows, so each row goes into the bracket. So the center bracket represents a row. And then I see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, so there's 4 columns. Okay, so I'm going to have 3 rows built with 4 columns, is basically what it says. That's really what I'm looking at there. And so this 2D array that I called my table, I just build it right now. And you have to remember that this output, this right here, system out println, here's the number 7. It says my table 1, 3. You have to remember it's the first, now I'm going to make a mistake. The first row, 3rd column is the wrong way to read that. It's not the first row, 3rd column. It's index 1 on the row, index 3 on the column. Index 1 on the row is not the first row, it's actually the 2nd row. And index 3 on the column is not the 3rd number, it's the 4th number. So actually, if you're trying to read indices, if you're trying to read index numbers, if you want a quick, easy rule, when you go up to the chart, just add 1 to these. You have the 2nd row, 4th number is what you're really looking for in the chart. 2nd row, 4th number. Okay. The second output statement says take my table 02 Okay, so it's really the first row, third column, because I'm going to add 1 so I can think like a human brain. Okay, so first row, third column. So first row, third column is the number 2. And take the third row, fourth column. Third row, fourth column is the number 11. So 2 plus 11 is going to give me 13. I'm going to get 13 as my answer there. So that's kind of the